Voice Your Vote starts right now.
From K2 News, this is your voice, your vote.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn in Eastern. Voice Your Vote starts right now.
From K2 News, this is your voice, your vote.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn in Eastern Oregon on the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. No doubt you've heard about this place since armed occupiers decided to take over this land 3 weeks ago. The reason I'm here this morning is because the leader of that group, Ammon Bundy, has agreed to answer my questions about why they're still here and when they plan to leave. Ammon, this is going on 3 weeks now, this occupation. Are you surprised you're still here?
No, not really. I'm really not surprised. I knew that it was going to take some effort to get some traction, and what we're doing here is not an easy thing. And we didn't come here to protest. We came here to go to work. And so absolutely, I'm not surprised.
They had a big community meeting last night. You were in attendance. Some folks chanted that they wanted you to go. First of all, your thoughts when you heard that happening at that meeting?
Oh, I've been hearing that for a while, but it's interesting because when they first started saying it weeks ago, it was probably the majority of the people that were saying it. And as they understood why we're here, that group shrunk until now we see at that meeting there was probably, about 100 people or so that were saying it. The other half, or more than half, was in support of us. And then to note that there was another meeting that was held at the same time, because the county did that on purpose, where there was 400 people that gave a standing ovation for the speaker that was in support of us. And so we certainly are seeing, and that's in the community of Burns. And then out in the ranching area, out in the where the land users are, they've been coming down here by the hundreds, and we've been communicating with them. They've been giving us their support. They've been bringing us food and supplies and drinks and associating with us and whatever else we need because of their support.
Do you feel you've been able to sway public opinion in your favor then?
I believe definitely here locally, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. When we first came in here, there was a fear of us because of the unknown and how we did it and so forth. And then what happened is, as the community has now begun to get to know us and associate with us and see how there is not a fear factor here as they come and go, and how we're here to defend and protect their rights, that fear then transferred to the federal government, because they blocked up the downtown, they put barricades around the courthouse and the schools, they began to occupy the school buildings and the courthouses, and so that fear transferred from us to them, and the community began to be afraid of them and their patrolling and all the force that is down there. And then lately now we're seeing a different transfer of fear, and that is they're afraid that we're going to leave too early. And because
who are you hearing that from?
I'm talking about the community. The people are saying, don't leave until we have these things right. Don't leave, because we have a chance now and a hope of getting a lot of things that have been wrong here in the county. We have a chance to get those straightened out, and we're asking you not to leave too early. And that is what we're hearing from many people in the community, both now in Burns and outside of in the rural area.
Because you did hear some last night who were chanting that they wanted you to go. It was a fairly large crowd,
yeah,
a boisterous crowd that said the time is now to go. What do you say to those folks?
Well, I say again, like I said, there's always, no matter what you do, no matter what effort you take, there's always going to be that very small but very loud minority or even small group of people that are always going to oppose you. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're doing the greatest thing in the world. There's still a group that will oppose you. And so we're not going to change our direction, or we're not going to go and abandon the good that we're doing to appease to a very small group of people.
What do you say to the folks who they agree with your message but not your tactics?
I believe that there wouldn't be a message if we didn't have the tactics. That you and I would not be talking here if we had not done what we did. And that was part of why we did it, because we knew that we had to shake this community up to make them aware of really what was going on. And this is the way we felt guided to do it, and so that's what we did.
What's your long-range plan? I mean, could this go on till August?
Our long-range plan is to begin the assisting, and we are doing that right now, to assisting the people in claiming back their rights, in saying that it is theirs, and being able to document it. And so basically what that means is that the people begin to use their rights as theirs, and also have it under county jurisdiction. So that's basically what we're looking at.
I'm sure you've heard from folks who say, hey, go in and get those guys out of there. When they talk about the federal government, let's go in and move them out. Are you prepared for something like that happening? The feds coming in?
Sure. I mean, we didn't come in here to blind, and we didn't come in here ignorant to what the possibilities could be, but we did come in here as educated individuals who understand what our rights are, who understand what the supreme law of this land is, and understand that that supreme law has been violated. And so, in a way, if you will, we are enforcing that. And we stand very solid upon that. And all the legal avenues are very interesting, because anything that they try to do with us legally actually exposes the illegal actions that they have been placing upon the people of Harney County here for years.
And why this plot of land? You could have picked any chunk of federal property in the United States. Why here?
Well, the main reason is we felt that it was the right place, and we followed our heart in that. And then we look at the facility it is, and how it's been able to house us, being able to, we have the mess hall, we have the bunkhouses, and how we have the laundry facilities, and the shop, and the equipment, and the offices, and the buildings, and our conference rooms. So we've been able to use that to accomplish what we came to accomplish, because we came to go to work, not to just be protesters. And so there's that aspect of it, but also this facility represents the oppression that has been placed upon the people. Just to make this facility, this refuge, if you will, it's 180,000 acres. It's 50 miles long, 40 miles wide. At one time, it all belonged to private ranchers, and now it's all been taken through many deceptions, through improper acquisitions, through condemning of ranches, through flooding that they imposed upon the rancher. All these adverse ways that the refuge has placed upon the ranchers to put them into duress, so that they'll either leave their ranch so that they can use it, or they'll put them in duress so that they have to sell to the refuge. That's how it was built. It was built upon breaking the backs of those that spent their livelihoods, their sweat, and their blood, and risked coming out here to establish a ranch. And the refuge came and broke their back so that they could take it from them.
You know, there are folks out there saying, okay, you've been here 3 weeks. Major point now, because you've been on certainly national news, international news now, and now it's time to pack up and leave. What do you say to them?
I say we didn't come here to make a point. We didn't come here to be protesters. We came here to make a difference. And there is something that we have to understand, that we're either being acted upon or we are acting. And we have been acted upon as a people for long enough. And now it is time to act. And that's why we came here. We came here to work, and that's what we're doing.
I will have more of my interview with Ammon Bundy on the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge when we come back.
.4:30 a.m.
More of K2's exclusive one-on-one interview with Ammon Bundy from the occupied Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, now on Your Voice, Your Vote. I want to talk about your father, Cliven Bundy. Of course, had a legendary standoff with the federal government over land use rights. How much influence has he had on what's happening here right now?
Very little, actually, other than he taught me to do the right thing and deal with the consequences. He taught my brothers the same thing. And he also has taught those that have associated with him to do what is right and let the consequences follow. And he's also been basically taught us to understand the Constitution, to understand the laws, to understand history and the premise of the laws, and to get yourself educated in those ways so that when it comes to making the right stand, you do it correctly. And so those influences definitely been there. But as far as decisions and coming in here, he didn't even know we were going to do it.
I want to talk about the Hammond family. Of course, obviously you're opposed to the prosecution and the imprisonment of the Hammonds. How much communication do you have with them now?
Quite a bit. Most have been private. I stay in very close contact with them. I visit them.
What do they say about what's going on here?
Well, again, they want to be able to maintain the possibility of getting them out of prison, right? Which has always been kind of the crutch, I guess, of them being able to really come out and be open, because they have hope that possibly through some method there will be justice.
They're hoping for clemency, aren't they, from the president?
Well, I think there's a lot around them that are, but I don't know. I don't think they have much hope in that. In fact, I don't think they have any hope in that. However, there are other avenues, and by them vocalizing their support, it might hinder that. At least that's how they view it. But I know where they stand, and I know where their support is. And I'll just leave it at that.
Whether this ends tomorrow or June or July, whenever, do you feel you will be prosecuted for what's happening here now?
I'm not worried about that. I didn't come in here for personal reasons. I didn't come in here for any personal gain. In fact, it was just the opposite of that. And we didn't start this process by coming in here. You need to understand that, or people need to understand that. We started this process months ago, where we took the prudent measures to petition our elected representatives and to communicate with them, to sit down with them, and to ask them to get involved, because there's a great injustice here. And we were denied time and time again. So then we got other people involved, influential people with coalitions and groups and so forth across the Western United States and across the entire United States. They got involved, meeting with the sheriff and meeting with the commissioners and asking them to look at what's going on and to address them, because what's happening is an injustice. And we were ignored, literally completely ignored the entire way. So then we went to legal measures, where we did a notice redress of grievance, which is a legal document that by law they are required to respond to. And we said, hey, here is all of the grievances that we see in the Hammond case. And we're asking you to assemble an evidential hearing board to have them investigated, so that these abuses and these corruptions that have happened on the federal level primarily can be exposed, and so that the Hammonds can be exonerated and go back to their homes and their families where they belong. They refused. In fact, they didn't even reply. And we had tens of thousands of names on that signature, or on that notice redress of grievance. And in Judge Grasty's own words, he said, oh, everybody who signed that is just a bunch of crazies. Well, Oregon was the most represented state of all the other states, and there was individuals from every state, including Hawaii and Alaska, that signed that. And they ignored it, completely ignored it.
What could the federal government say today that would get you to leave?
It's not what they can say, it's what they can do.
What could they do?
They could follow the Constitution of the United States and give these people back their lands. They can look at the violations that they imposed upon, the constitutional violations that they imposed upon the Hammonds, and release them and let them go back to their families.
You mentioned elected officials. I want to read a couple of quotes from a couple of congressional members. Congressman Blumenauer calls you guys terrorists. We also had Senator Wyden, who said you appear to have committed a slew of felonies here. What do you say to these folks?
So who are they from?
Both Oregon. Senator Wyden and Congressman Blumenauer, both from the state of Oregon. Again, Congressman Blumenauer calls you terrorists. Senator Wyden says you appear to have committed a slew of felonies here.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've been called terrorists, and it's not the first time a group of people that are standing for their rights have been called terrorists, because that seems to be the coinage, as you may, of anybody who stands against the government and what their actions are. Anybody who dares to say that there is a supreme law, that government has rules that they're supposed to abide by. Anybody who does that, all of a sudden now they're terrorists. And so that would be my response to him.
Are you anti-government?
Absolutely not.
Because most people, I would imagine, are watching this whole occupation unfold, would say this is an anti-government group out there. So explain that.
Yeah, absolutely not. We have a system in government that was put in place, and it is been the best system that has been proven in the history of man. And that is a system of federalism. And by federalism, by doctrine, is where each level of government checks and balances each other. So each government has a responsibility and a duty, and when they step outside of that responsibility and duty, the other level checks and balances it. So for example, the federal government's responsibility is to protect the states from the outside world, to handle national defense, international trade, and to be of an appeals court. So when two or more states can't get along, they have a way to peacefully resolve the problem by appealing to a higher court. The state's government responsibility is to protect the people in the counties from the federal government. And the county's responsibility is to protect the people from the state. And the people's responsibility is to make sure that their county is functioning, to elect the judges, to be set on the jury, to elect their commissioners who create the laws. And that way their county, the greatest justice and the most closest level of government is to the people is the county, so that the people can be free using their lands and resources, exercising their rights without other levels of government or the world coming down upon them trying to take it. You know,
people are going to say, though, maybe a broken system to you, but you guys aren't helping to fix the system.
We certainly are, and that's why we're here. The broken part is that the federal government does not have authority to come down into the states and control its land and resources. And people have to have the resources to live. They have to be able to produce. I mean, the clothes that you're wearing, that I'm wearing, that we eat, the water we drink, the homes we live in, the cars we drive, the cameras that are taking this, all of that came from the resources of the earth. So people have to have access to their land and resources. If they don't, then they are literally put into poverty. They can't even live and be comfortable. So whoever controls the land and resources has full control of the people. And that's why our founding fathers were so adamant about the only safe place for the land and the resources was distributed in the individual, the people's hands. And that it was not safe that government get a huge amount and control of these resources, because they begin to use it for themselves and the people would be put into poverty. And that's exactly what's happened here in Harney County.
Do you see this possibly sparking a bigger movement throughout the country? Right now it's Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. 2 months from now it's another spot somewhere, federal government land in the country. Do you see that possibly having a ripple effect?
Are you talking about the action of getting their land and resource, or the occupation? Well, that's an interesting thought that you say, because we certainly hope that there is a spread, a domino effect of taking back their rights, and that spreads throughout counties and states, and we've actually seen that. We've got Malheur County next door that actually have a group over there right now speaking to individuals, and a group of ranchers over there. They're facing I'm trying to say that they're facing a not a refuge, but a what is it? Monument. Thank you. They're facing a monument over there that's twice the size of Yellowstone, and it's going to put 350 to 400 ranchers out of business, and that's what they're facing right now. So they're like, hey, we need to stand, or we won't have nothing left. You got Grant County. We're meeting with them on Monday. With a large group of people, and Lake County is also being involved, and then we have counties in Utah, we have counties in Arizona, and also Idaho that are considering doing these things. Now, when it comes to the occupation, I would like to address that, and that is, we did not come in here until we had exhaust all prudent measures, and we were ignored on every level. And just as we learned in the Declaration of Independence that it is the individuals have rights, they are God-given, and that they have the right to alter or abolish government if they are not protecting those rights. But just as they did, you have to go through a process of petitions and grievances, and you have to do that prudently. And then if the people are completely denied and not recognized and ignored, then they have a right to act. And that's what we did.
I'll have more of my interview with Ammon Bundy and the standoff here at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge when we come back.
We have no intention on using our weapons, but we have them.
Bridge.
K2's exclusive one-on-one interview with Ammon Bundy continues on Your Voice, Your Vote from the occupied Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. You know, folks in the community have said they've been followed by people that are associated with your group, sympathetic to your cause. What is the point of these folks being followed?
They haven't been followed by us. Just as the chief, fire chief there found sounds like 6 individuals that were in their armory, and the community was saying that it was militia that was in there. And as he found out and unwound what was happening, he found out that it was undercover FBI. And it was not the militia that was in there at all. And so we have to believe, because we know we have no business and no need to be following people around and, and causing that fear. It doesn't even benefit us at all.
So you guys haven't followed any of these folks?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I want to talk about the weapons, because one of the big concerns of community members that this became an armed standoff. Could not the same thing have been accomplished without the guns?
Well, we have seen where different, if you want to say protesters, have tried to express their First Amendment rights, and where government has come down upon them and beat them and tased them and sprayed them with mace and all those other things. I mean, you don't have to look very far to see that. And that's what happens when those that express their First Amendment rights do not express them with their Second Amendment rights. And so we have no intention on using our weapons, but we have them, and we're willing to stand with them in our own defense as we exercise our rights and as we restore our rights back to our brothers and sisters, back to our neighbors.
So this is all just part of this occupation, expressing your Second Amendment rights, having the weapons, with no plans to use them?
No, using our Second Amendment rights. We are using our Second Amendment rights. There are rights. They were just documented in the Second Amendment. And as you might know or might not, there's more to the Second Amendment than most people think. And it says, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. Again, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
You have been called a militia, you know that, by various folks throughout the country.
I proudly take that name.
You have no problem with that?
No, absolutely. The militia is the people's army. The Constitution says, the Second Amendment says, it is necessary to have a well-regulated militia in order to secure a free state. In order to have a free state, you have to have a militia.
This occupation, as you know, is costing the county, they say, thousands of dollars every single day. Is that something you guys will repay at some point?
Absolutely, because it's not our choice that they brought in deputies from all the other counties. It's not our choice that they brought in the FBI and whatever else. It wasn't our choice that they barricaded the courthouse and the schools and brought in command centers and equipment and armed men. That was their decision. And the reason they made that decision was to put the people in fear, to turn them against us. And now that's backfiring.
So they're not getting any money out of you once you do
Absolutely
depart.
not. Absolutely not. And in fact, it's interesting because here you got government again spending all this money to defend and protect themselves. And yet the people, because of all this movement and action and all the people that are coming, the business owners are loving it. They're having the best year they've ever had in January, and it'll probably continue that. The hotels are open, the restaurants are full, the RV parks are full, and the list goes on and on. The print shops are busy, and the list goes on and on. So economically, we've already boosted their economy, but then you got the government over here hiding in the corner, wasting all their money. And that's just a perfect example of what's happening in Burns.
Biggest misconception about you that people have?
Maybe you can give it to me. I don't know.
I don't know, but I would imagine probably with all the publicity around the country, people do see this as possibly terrorists, a large militia, armed militia. Is that the real you, or what is the real you?
Well, I have a beautiful wife. I have a business with several employees. I've had that business for 18 years where I take care of commercial trucks. I contract with people who have fleets, and I manage and maintain their vehicles. I have 6 children from the ages 13 to 1 year old, and 3 boys, 3 girls. We believe in the Lord. We follow Him and try to do our best to be good people to our neighbors. I live on a 5-acre apple orchard, and I make my own apple pies and deliver them to my neighbors because I enjoy it. I have no ill intent upon the people and my neighbors. I only see, along with those that are around us, I see an injustice. I see the American people being abused. I see a need for someone to stand and take a role in trying to defend that. And I see the light of freedom being snuffed out and not being able to pass it on to my children. And so again, we have a choice to act or to be acted upon.
This is emotional for you, I can tell.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, your father influenced you greatly. Do you plan to pass along that same influence, or are you, to your children as well?
I can only hope that I'm as effective as my father. And I certainly desire to do that, absolutely.
One final question. Your best estimate, when will this be over?
It will be over when the people of Harney County have their feet and legs strengthened enough that they can begin to do this on their own.
Time-wise, no estimate?
There is no estimate of time. Although it is happening very rapidly, and the people of Harney County are responding even faster than we even anticipated. And you know, that's why when you go to these meetings, you got 400 or 500, 600 people at them, and the parking lots are full, and the people are talking and engaging because they're working through this. They're getting educated. They're understanding that individuals are the ones who have rights, not government. That government was there for them, and that the individuals, in order to reclaim that, if you will, back, all they have to do is stand up and begin using it, and be willing to say that it's ours. And that's what's happening.
Would you be surprised if you're still here springtime?
I would not be surprised if we're still here springtime, because when the snow melts, that's when the people begin to use their land. And that's really going to start to be a determining factor of whether they feel like the chains have been loosed and they're free. And it'll be in the usage part of their lands that'll determine that.
If I had to ask you the same question I asked Ammon Monday, would you be surprised if this were still going on in the springtime?
I would hope it's not.
And that's what's happening.
Would you be surprised if you're still here springtime?
I would not be surprised if we're still here springtime, because when the snow melts, that's when the people begin to use their land. And that's really going to start to be a determining factor of whether they feel like the chains have been loosed and they're free. And it'll be in the usage part of their lands that'll determine that.
If I had to ask you the same question I asked Ammon Monday, would you be surprised if this were still going on in the springtime?
I would hope it's not.
As I said yesterday, Pete Santilli would probably get released. And right now, he technically got released by the judge. I was right. The judge wanted to prove a point, and she did. However, it doesn't matter because any order that she gave is overruled by the fact that he has an indictment in Nevada. Now, let's see. Right here. The judge granted his release with the order he go to a halfway house in Portland after he's fitted with a GPS monitor. Santilli must also undergo a mental health evaluation. But that release won't go into effect because Santilli is under another federal indictment in Nevada related to his alleged involvement in the standoff at Cliven Bundy's ranch in 2014. And here you go. The Nevada indictment keeps Santilli in federal custody. The judge granted pretrial release under specific conditions, but it does not matter. See, I was right. She was going to prove a point. All the stuff I had read about her, everything I was hearing about her and read about her, she was out to show the federal prosecutors that she means to take over this whole case. She means business, and she was going to prove a point, and she did. And all she did was prove a point. She didn't really get him released. But there's the documents. There it is. Pete has to stay in jail. But that is interesting. Even if he wasn't get released, he couldn't go back to Ohio. He had to stay in Portland at a halfway house and get mental evaluations. Well, anyways, until next time. In this video, I wanted to put the investigation of the who is Mark McConnell case to close. And with that said, I have some new information I'd like to share. In one of the latter videos that I released on the subject, I got a comment from a member of the the Arizona Border Recon, and they were a little bit offended, like I was attacking them because Mark, was once volunteered, and I had a discussion with him, and there was no disrespect meant. I have nothing against the Arizona Border Recon, but in that discussion, it was relayed to me that Mark was only a volunteer for 2 days. And in that discussion, I immediately saw that as a red flag, because you have a volunteer who is volunteering for the first time. He's only been there 2 days, and all of a sudden you have a news broadcast about your group. And I've already discussed this. And to me, it seemed like that is infiltration. That is infiltration. You have a new guy, and all of a sudden you're getting media coverage. And it sounds like if it was infiltration, the media was in on it too. And the new guy, Mark, actually gets to speak in that television coverage. And this group has been around for 5 years, and he just shows up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden there's media coverage. So that sounds very, very suspect. Sounds like infiltration. Well, anyways, I've been told that he is no longer welcome back to the Arizona Border Recon. He was only there 2 days, and he is gone now. And I'm glad to hear that. And
a local activist tied to the recent Oregon militia standoff is trying desperately to get out of a federal holding facility and come back to his home in Cincinnati. Pete Santilli, who hosts a YouTube show and claims to be a journalist, has been behind bars since his arrest January 26th. A local activist tied to the recent Oregon militia standoff is trying desperately to get out of a federal holding facility and come back to his home in Cincinnati. Pete Santilli, who hosts a YouTube show and claims to be a journalist, has been behind bars since his arrest January 26th. Local 12's Rich Jaffe reports Santilli says he's basically willing to turn his apartment over to the FBI.
Pete Santilli was arrested January 26th after asking law enforcement at the Oregon standoff if he could go into the secured area to try and bring out women and children still in the compound. The video of his arrest was posted on YouTube, and he has been in federal custody ever since. Santilli first came to attention in the Cincinnati area when he was arrested for improperly transporting a loaded firearm by Newtown police last December. Shortly after those charges were dropped, he showed up in Oregon at the standoff and claimed to be a working member of the media. His controversial Pete Santilli show is broadcast over YouTube. He garnered quite a bit of attention after saying on one of his shows in May of 2013 that he wanted to shoot Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
I want to shoot her right in the and just really, I don't want her to die right away. I want her to feel the pain, and I want to look her in the eyes.
YouTube is also full of broadcasts which say Santilli is really a government informant.
evidence that we had was so strong against this club.
A local activist tied to the recent Oregon militia standoff is trying desperately to get out of a federal holding facility and come back to his home in Cincinnati. Pete Santilli, who hosts a YouTube show and claims to be a journalist, has been behind bars since his arrest January 26th. Local 12's Rich Jaffe reports Santilli says he's basically willing to turn his apartment over to the FBI.
Pete Santilli was arrested January 26th after asking law enforcement at the Oregon standoff if he could go into the secured area to try and bring out women and children still in the compound. The video of his arrest was posted on YouTube, and he has been in federal custody ever since. Santilli first came to attention in the Cincinnati area when he was arrested for improperly transporting a loaded firearm by Newtown police last December. Shortly after those charges were dropped, he showed up in Oregon at the standoff and claimed to be a working member of the media. His controversial Pete Santilli show is broadcast over YouTube. He garnered quite a bit of attention after saying on one of his shows in May of 2013 that he wanted to shoot Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
I want to shoot her right in the and just really, I don't want her to die right away. I want her to feel the pain, and I want to look her in the eyes.
YouTube is also full of broadcasts which say Santilli is really a government informant, a charge he denies. Since his arrest, Santilli has been declared a danger to the community and a flight risk. In this declaration for the U.S. District Court in Oregon, Santilli says he can understand why the judge expressed concern about some of his statements. He says that while he turned over his firearms as requested by authorities, he said on the air, "I buried my guns because I wanted people to think that they could not simply file a false restraining order against me as a means to take away my firearms." He goes on to say he didn't want people to think he was defenseless. He also explained why he said he'd shoot anyone who comes busting through my door at 4 o'clock in the morning, saying he wasn't talking about law enforcement. Pete Santilli and his girlfriend live in this tiny Mount Washington apartment building on the second floor. In his negotiations with federal authorities, he says in these documents that he's willing to let the FBI come in and search his apartment anytime they want. And if the federal judge releases him, he's also willing to let the FBI install surveillance cameras in his apartment. In Mount Washington, Rich Jaffe, Local 12 News.
No word at this point when or if Pete Santilli will be released, but we will let you know as the case progresses.